Good morning and welcome to Anatomy and Physiology. I am Dr. Eddie Pacheco.
Dr. Fernando.
And today we are going to be pointing out certain parts of the sheep brain. To begin with, I'm going to identify some parts of the brain. First of all, this is the front of the brain and this is the back of the brain, otherwise known as the anterior side and the posterior side. First, I'm going to point out the longitudinal fissures. Those are the creases in the brain that go very deep. They're deeper than the other kind of creases, which are called sulci. The longitudinal fissures have a lot of blood inside of them, so they're more red, I guess. They're dark. They're right here, and they're found on both sides of the brain. The sulci are not as deep as the longitudinal fissures, but they are also on top of the brain, but they're not as deep. They're very light in color. Both give the brain its appearance, so they're responsible for the way the brain really looks. Next, we have the cerebellum, which is on the posterior side of the brain. The cerebellum has a lot of functions, and it's easy to identify because it's kind of separated from the rest of the brain. Next, we have the gyri, and the gyri are sausage-like. As you can see here, they are also on top of the brain and give the brain its appearance. They are all over the brain and pretty much are responsible for making the brain the way it is. They are all over the brain, as you can see. Next, we have the corpus callosum. The corpus callosum is actually inside of the brain, as you can see here and here. They are found in both hemispheres and are responsible for communication. Through them runs these thread-like nerves that help the brain, both sides of the brain, communicate with each other, as you can see here. Next, we have the cerebral hemispheres, and all that is are the two sides of the brain. This is the right hemisphere, and this is the left hemisphere, and they communicate with each other through the cords or through the nerves. Next, we have the medulla oblongata, which is also on the posterior side of the brain, and it's connected to the cerebellum. The medulla oblongata is right here, actually, and it's pretty much connected. It's attached to a lot of the other structures that we will identify.
Right here on the sheep brain, on the ventral side of the brain, we have our pons, which is a very big ball shape right above the medulla oblongata, and it has a very big part also in the brainstem. And it brings us to the dorsal side of the brain, the cerebrum, where it has the hemispheres, and it has our frontal lobe, parietal lobe, occipital lobe here in the back of the brain, and also our temporal lobe. The frontal lobe, it acts as what would you say? Speech and language, thinking. This is where most of your thinking goes on, in the frontal. And on the parietal, it has touch and sensory.
A lot of motor nerves.
A lot of motor nerves. And occipital deals with your vision and how you look at things. Our temporal lobe, it deals with our hearing
And speech.
Hearing and speech as well. And inside of the brain, we have our hypothalamus and our thalamus. Right here, right above our hypothalamus, is our thalamus. And that actually sorts the data throughout the brain. And the hypothalamus acts as our hormones. It controls our hormones. And this right here inside the brainstem of the medulla oblongata, we have our white matter and gray matter. Our white matter acts as our cables that goes with the gray matter right inside. Obviously it's been cut off so you can't really see as perfect, but on the very inside is our gray matter, and that's acts our computers on the brainstem.
Okay. Next, we're going to identify some nerves that are on the brain. They're mostly located on the ventral side of the brain. So here we have the olfactory nerves, which are responsible for the sense of smell. Next, we have the optic nerves that are right here. They've kind of been destroyed, both of them actually. But the optic nerves have been, they are responsible for vision and helping you to see and understand things. Next, we have the accessories that have kind of been removed because they're attached on the lower end of the medulla of the brainstem, pretty much, or where the brainstem and the spine. The spinal cord. I'm sorry, with the brainstem and the spinal cord attached. Next, we have the trigeminal, which was actually removed, but we have the part to better see it.
This acts also as a cartilage to the brain.
Yeah, this was removed from the brain earlier to be able to identify the other parts. Right here we have the trigeminal, and it is, I mean, it's still kind of visible here on the brain, but this just helps you see it better. Alright, so
and that wraps up our sheep brain, and thank you for listening to our presentation. And this is Dr. Eddie, Dr. Fernando, and thank you.
Peace out.